afternoon, everybody. Hi. We're going to get started. I'm Margaret Fisher. I'm one of the organizers of the Student Peace Awards. Thank you all so much for coming. We are starting as promised at 4:15, but unfortunately, apparently there was a big accident on 66, so it's possible we may change the order just slightly for latecomers if needed. But in the meantime, every October, we've been asking the students, the schools, every high school in Fairfax County, to choose one recipient who has made a substantial contribution to peacemaking. Since our schools are full of students who are doing amazing things, that is, make the world a better place, that is not an easy job for the schools. But you were chosen because your actions demonstrate some of the many creative ways that we can each play a role in peacemaking. I would say that history and current events show us that peace is not going to happen unless we work for it. As Albert Einstein said, we must be prepared to make the same heroic sacrifices for the cause of peace that we make ungrudgingly for the cause of war. In appreciation of what you've done, we have a check for each of you. We also will be sending $100 in your name to a nonprofit organization chosen by you, whose values are consistent with those of the Student Peace Awards. We're going to start with some thanks and with introductions of some of our guests, and three of whom are going to be saying a few words themselves. Then I'm going to invite you up in turn, in alphabetical order by school, to stand up front with our guests while I read a few sentences about you. While I'm doing that, please turn and face the photographer. This is key. After that, we'll have a guest speaker, Amelia Keegan, and then after she's finished, we'll do a group photo of all the recipients up front here, and we'll explain how to get yourself organized at that point. And then afterwards, please chat and have some cookies. We have a book for each of you called Sweet Fruit from the Bitter Tree, which is a collection of true stories of ordinary people who suddenly found themselves in dangerous situations and who managed to get out of it without resorting to violence. For the past several years, the author Mark Andreas and his publisher have donated signed copies for us to give to you. I'd like to extend our thanks to a few people. First, we are ever grateful to our friends from the First Church of Christ Scientist who arranged for us to use this community center for the reception. And we have great thanks to all our volunteers and the 16 sponsoring organizations who make this program possible. We're very happy to welcome the Rotary Club of Mount Vernon as our newest co-sponsor. Thank you to all of you all to coming today to celebrate the accomplishments of these students. And especially thanks to the school staff members who go above and beyond every day at school and then came here in support of their students. If any of those are in the room, would you please stand up? Oh, they're all caught in traffic. Oh, there we go. Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. And finally, could Miriam Grabus please stand up? Miriam is the artist who created the peace poster, which is on the back of the program. Thank you, Miriam. We're extremely honored that 4 members of our school board, maybe 5 actually, just came in, are here with us today. So please stand as I name you. Karen Keys-Gamara has been a member at large since 2017. Karen? Maybe not. And she is an experienced attorney who handles family law matters and works as a court-appointed guardian ad litem. Elaine Tholam is from the Drainsville district. Elaine is a career educator who's worked in elementary, middle, and high schools. And she's, I happen to know, a very staunch environmentalist who's been instrumental in promoting environmental education. I don't think Carl is here, so Ricardi Anderson. Ricardi Anderson represents the Mason District and is an educator, parent, community volunteer, and former Army reservist. Dr. Anderson has over 23 years of experience in education, serving as a teacher and principal in both elementary and middle schools. And Rachna Sizemore Heiser is a member at large and the current chair of the school board. She is a college professor, lawyer, and a disability justice advocate. Thank you. We are also very happy to have Ken Plum. Ken Plum is a retired teacher and school administrator who has represented the 36th District in the Virginia House of Delegates for 44 years. We are going to be missing his leadership in Richmond since he has announced his well-deserved retirement from the legislature. But we hope that we won't have to miss him at our future receptions because he's been a good friend to the Student Peace Awards. And finally, Jerry Connolly. Jerry Connolly is now serving in his 7th term in the U.S. House of Representatives from Virginia's 11th District, which covers most of Fairfax County. Prior to his election to Congress, he served 14 years on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors, including 5 years as chairman. So now I would like to call up first Jerry Connolly to say a few words, followed by Ken Plum, and then Rachna Sizemore Heiser, who will speak on behalf of the school board.
Thank you. Good afternoon. And fellow peace lovers. So when I was your age, the Vietnam War was raging, and I was an active opponent of that war. I was a draft counselor, because in those days we had a draft, forcing young men, mostly young men, to go fight in Vietnam. I picketed, I protested. Somehow I managed not to get arrested, but not without trying. And for me, that was a passionate cause and a defining issue in my life. And I'm proud of that work to this day. Because for me, it was the wrong decision for America. It actually negated the values I thought were intrinsic to being a good American. And in those days, dissent was not respected. You were called un-American. You were told, they had an expression, love it or leave it, meaning if you didn't support the war in Vietnam, you didn't love your country, leave it. So we had to fight for peace. We had to fight for the right to dissent. We had to fight to remind Americans what it means to be an American under our Constitution. Peace was a real thing. People were living and dying in Vietnam, Americans and Vietnamese, because peace had failed. And many voices who could have spoken up for peace failed. Today we watch a war raging in Ukraine. Again, peace is threatened in Europe. Something we thought was over after World War II ended in 1945. And yet here we are in 2023. And we see the depravity and the brutality of Russia and Vladimir Putin inflicted on innocent people who are seeking one thing: their freedom. Their freedom to decide their course. Their freedom to decide their associations with NATO or other alliances. Their freedom to be Ukrainian, not Russian. And for that, their country has been invaded. Millions have been made refugees. Families have been destroyed and separated. And the violence continues, and it's wanton. It's not selective. So peace is a fragile thing. Peace has to be fought for. But peace has to mean more than the absence of violence. Peace has to be about empowerment. Peace has to be about society building where people are free to live up to their full potential, irrespective of where they come from, their ethnic background, their religious background, their social background, their religious background, their sexual orientation, their gender. Everyone, every human being ought to be able to live up to his or her full potential. That ought to be the goal of any free society. And that creates peace. Because when all of us buy into that value system, there's nothing to fight about. So what you're doing today is important, but make it a habit for the rest of your life. I'm a long way away from your age and the Vietnam War. But I can tell you as a member of Congress, I take very seriously that issue of war and peace. I have a vote to send men and women to war. And I take it very seriously, and based on my own experience, I really take it seriously. I'm looking forward, for example, to revoking the authorization for the use of military force that was granted after 9/11. Thank you. In fact, I've already done so a couple of times. So I practice what I preach, and I'm privileged to be able to actually act on it. But so can you, in little ways as well as big ways. How you vote, the level of your activity and involvement in your community as a peace builder. Building connections and bridges among people is peace activity. Helping people understand one another and better accept one another, and not to be afraid of the other. It's really important. So I hope, as we celebrate our awardees today and your accomplishment, you will take this to heart and make this part of your life, because the world needs a lot more of you. So thank you for being here today. Congratulations to all of you. And thank you for our sponsors and our adult guides for making today possible. It's an event I don't ever like to miss. Congratulations. God bless you. I got to introduce my friend Ken Plum. Ken Plum is one of the most distinguished members of the General Assembly of Virginia. And he is retiring as the second longest serving member of the House in the history of Virginia, 400 years. He is an incredible legislator. We're going to miss his legislating, but we're not going to miss his voice, because his voice is going to be louder than ever. Give it up for a peacemaker, Ken Plum.
Thank you, Congressman Connolly. That's exactly what I had to say. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want you to mistake my brevity. I come to this every year because I view it as an incredibly important activity that we have for the young people of our community. And my only wish would be that it's not available to more people. And I know that's not your fault. It's something that we need to work over time. But in terms of young people approaching life and developing a set of values and standards, what's happening here is most critically important. So my purpose in being here is, one, to say to the organizers, Margaret and all the other folks who put this together, the sponsors and so on, thank you, thank you, thank you for this incredibly important activity that you have for the young people of our community. Secondly, I'd like to say also to the young people here, thank you. Thank you for being willing to be involved in this kind of activity. As the Congressman has already indicated, we set our values oftentimes when we're young, and those values come forth in the future. Peace will be realized not because some dictator dictates it, not because somebody wins an election. Peace will come about when people develop an approach and an attitude towards resolving issues among people and working towards peace. That will all come about from activities like this. God bless you all for being here and being a part of it. I commend you for your activities, and I look forward to hearing more about your projects. God bless you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rachna Sizemore-Heiser. I'm the chair of the school board. I'm really honored to speak on behalf of my colleagues, and I'm grateful my colleagues Lane Toll and Dr. Anderson are here today as well. But really, I'm here. I'm not going to take a lot of your time because I'm just so impressed by you all. Right? I'm sitting here reading through the program and the different works that you all are doing to bring peace and kindness and justice and to give back to your communities, whether it's in your neighborhood, in your backyard, in your school, in your state, in your country, or overseas is just, I don't know, I was pretty selfish when I was in high school. I don't think I would have done half of what you did, right? Like, it's so impressive that not only are you, looking at the world and saying, what can I do to make the world a better place? But you're stepping up and you're doing it. And, at the school system, you may have heard, it's a little divisive these days. Public education is a little divisive, and our school meetings can be a little divisive. And what I love is that you all aren't shying away from saying, I'm going to step up and bring peace. And I'm going to step up and I'm going to bring kindness, and I'm going to bring justice, and I'm going to use not just my voice, but I'm going to make action and make change in this world. Because I say this to a lot of people, right? We are living through COVID. I say COVID is this global trauma, and we have global PTSD. And that's why you see the anger and the divisiveness and the quickness to judge and it's going in each corners. And talking at each other can only do so much. But when you step up and you say, I'm going to do something to make this person's life better, or to make this group's life better, or to raise awareness of the injustice that this group is facing, and I'm going to do something about it, that speaks volumes. Because people see the good, they feel the good, and they feel the kindness. So, what I know, watching our students, is that our future is so bright. And our future is so bright because you don't let what you see around you stop you from spreading kindness. So thank you to you. Thank you to your families and loved ones and caregivers who supported you, because I know that they are right there behind you and with you and have taught you how you can use your own passions, your strengths, your talents for good in the world. So I am honored to speak here. I am proud of what you're doing. Please keep up the work. Please always recognize that you have within your world, you can make the world a better place. And you can make the world the place that you want to live in. For yourself, for your loved ones, for your community, and especially for those who don't have what you have to give, or aren't able to give what you have to give, or don't have the supports, right? In some ways, those of you in this room are very lucky, right? And just stop for a moment and think about how lucky you are. How lucky you are to have the support system of all these family members. And how lucky you are to have the strength, the ability, the knowledge, the time, the passion, to do what you do. Right? Like, I think sometimes when we give back to the world, we're like, I feel good about giving back. But I look at it as, I'm lucky to be able to give back. Right? I'm lucky to be able to do good things. Embrace that. Right? Embrace that. Own that. Say, this is awesome because I get to do this. And I get to do something bigger than myself. So thank you for being the people who are doing something bigger than yourself. Thank you for using your time for peace in the world. Thank you for making the world a better place. And thank you to the families and loved ones who support you for doing that. And now, the most important thing, to honor you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're going to start with Annandale High School. Phil Mamiaza, if you could please stand up here, and if you all would like to join him here, I'll take Okay. Philemon Miaza started his own podcast, The Brief Dive, during his sophomore year. The Brief Dive offers teens and their parents short, informative episodes that focus on topics related to mental health of teens. Recent episodes included discussions of anxiety, goal setting, loneliness, sleep, social media, and how everything in the world is connected. Philemon says his goal in producing the podcast is to provide a place where teens can learn more about the issues they may be dealing with and to know they're not alone. Parents also find a reprieve in listening to his podcast, which helps them to know that their child isn't the only one dealing with certain issues. Thank you, Philemon. Congratulations. So Deborah Horn, please come up. Deborah's from Centerville High School and is the vice president of the Centerville chapter of Bake for Sake, a national organization that provides fresh baked goods to homeless shelters. She coordinates with local shelters and recruits volunteer bakers from Centerville High School and the surrounding area so that local shelters can have a steady supply of unique and delicious brownies, pies, cookies, and other baked goods. She uses social media to generate interest, sign up volunteers, and share recipes. Deborah's chapter of Bake for Sake donates food about 3 times a month, and at least 3 volunteer bakers contribute food each time. Thank you, Deborah. From Chantilly High School, Ella Osland. And her sister co-founded Super Service Kid, a youth-led service organization that partners with nonprofits to help children. Over the past 9 years, dozens of children ages 6 to 18 have participated in dozens of projects, such as cutting old denim and upcycling plastics to be used to make shoes for children in Uganda to protect their feet from parasites, preparing bagged meals and collecting supplies for a shelter, collecting stuffed animals for first responders to give to children during emergencies, organizing school supply drives, and raising funds for clean water projects. In addition to her work with Super Service Kids, Ella has been involved in advocacy and fundraising for women's rights issues and in protests to encourage sensible gun laws. Thank you, Ella. From Edison High School, Ella Duncan High.
It worked.
Ella is the outreach director of the Virginia chapter of Generation Ratify, Virginia chapters, I should say, a youth-led movement to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment and advance gender equality. Ella guides all Generation Ratify chapters in Virginia and trains leaders to start equal rights clubs in their own schools and communities. She and her colleagues at Generation Ratify have lobbied for Black maternal rights, abortion access, and reproductive rights in Virginia, LGBTQ rights, transgender participation in sports, and gender identification rights. She led a walkout at Edison High School last year to fight gun violence and another for LGBTQ trans rights. She is also the event organizer for the Environmental Club at Edison High School, which is working to get Edison the title of a Green Flag certified school. Thank you. Thank you. From Fairfax High School, Aiden F. Takari. Eftekari has volunteered for over 500 hours with the Touch of Life Foundation, an organization based in Vienna, Virginia, that provides active assistance to child trafficking victims sheltered at an orphanage in Rajasthan, India. Touch of Life also conducts education and advocacy focused on stopping child exploitation. His work to stop child trafficking has included writing blogs, organizing online webinars with national and international participants, speaking at local and regional conferences, briefing Representative Jerry Connolly's staff about the child trafficking provisions in the Affordable Care Act, and briefing Department of Homeland Security and Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials on the issue. Aiden has helped raise approximately $40,000 in support of the Bal Ashram Orphanage and other anti-trafficking activities. Thank you, Aiden. From Falls Church High School, Lucia Patino Ipore. Lucia Patino Ipore, an immigrant from Bolivia, saw that lack of English language skills significantly affects other students' ability to participate in high school life. She started translating the student activity bulletins and other school documents into Spanish. This practice was ultimately extended by the staff using Google Translate into translations for Vietnamese and Urdu speakers, the next two most widely spoken non-English languages at her school. Lucia also asked student club officers to encourage non-English native-speaking students to participate in clubs and to try out for sports. Lucia and the other two equity ambassador leaders at Falls Church High School are starting a student equity council so that students will have a safe space to express their ideas to the school administration. Thank you, Lucia. From Hayfield Secondary School, Ash Bulmer. Shortly after the May 2022 Uvalde shooting, in which 19 students and 2 teachers were gunned down, Ash Bulmer worked with the other leaders of the newly formed Students Demand Action Club and members of Moms Demand Action to organize a walkout from Hayfield. Over 800 Hayfield students joined in the demonstration. Last October, Ash worked with other members of the Gender Sexuality Alliance Club to organize a walkout for LGBTQ rights and to protest Governor Glenn Youngkin's proposed policies. Almost 900 students at Hayfield participated, along with students at over 100 schools across Virginia. These protests led to the policies being delayed. Thank you, Ash. From Herndon High School, Amanda Green. Amanda developed the Herndon High School chapter of Morgan's Message, which was first founded by her older sister, into a broader program after her sister's graduation. Morgan's Message is a national program to normalize mental health conversations and encourage active support for those who reach out for help. At Herndon High, the main event for Morgan's Message is called Dedication Games. In the spring, at team home games, the playing fields are decorated with butterflies, which is Morgan Message's symbol. Prior to the games, flyers were distributed and Amanda gave a pre-game speech encouraging students to support each other and seek help when they're struggling. During the school year, the club met for various activities such as writing inspiration messages on paper butterflies to put up around the school. Amanda is also the president of Herndon's Best Buddies Club, a global program assisting those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Thank you, Amanda. From Justice High School, the Girl Up Club. Girl Up is a girl-centered leadership development initiative focusing on equity for girls and women. The Justice chapter has over 100 members. The group meets monthly to plan and implement projects and fundraisers focused on sexual and reproductive health, rights, and justice for girls. The group's ongoing work includes its menstrual equity project to provide feminine products in school restrooms. The club also collects and distributes clothing for school formal events year-round. Other recent projects have included collecting winter coats and accessories for justice students in need and partnering with other school clubs to assemble feminine hygiene kits for a school in Africa. The club raises funds for its school-based programs as well as for United Nations Girl Up efforts such as Bras for a Cause, which promotes breast cancer awareness, and the School Cycle program to provide bikes for girls in developing countries to ensure safe travel to and from school. Thank you all. From King Abdullah Academy, Nadine Ilosta. Nadine has participated twice in medical missions to Jamaica. Before leaving on her second mission in 9th grade, she partners with the school's Project Humanity Club to raise money for backpacks and supplies for the children. Nadine has also raised funds for breast cancer research. Currently, she is the president of the school's Our Minds Matter Club, which raises school awareness of mental health issues and provides help. Events have included a mental health walk at school for middle and high schoolers who search for QR codes which link to hidden facts about mental health, and a session with middle schoolers to discuss bullying. Outside of school, Nadine volunteers through the Ethiopian Community Developmental Council as a first friend for new refugees. Thank you, Nadine. From Lake Braddock Secondary School, Jessica Sim. Jessica started the philanthropy club at Lake Braddock with the help of her sister. The club's first project raised $5,000 to support needy families. The club also delivered over 1,000 handmade Valentine cards to seniors in rehabilitation centers and organized outdoor school ground cleanups during the pandemic. 2 years later, Jessica started Being Better Bruins, a club focused on social justice, civic engagement, and citizenship, which has successfully run a classroom supply drive and which plans to work on a speaker series addressing issues such as racial equality and LGBTQ+ rights. Jessica also serves on the Fairfax County Student Human Rights Commission. Thank you, Jessica. From Langley High School, Bree Yagana. As a freshman, Bree Yagana volunteered with International Rescue Committee and started participating in Zoom sessions with young refugees to help with homework, college preparation, and cultural assimilation. She then founded her own English language and cultural assimilation program with the objective of easing potential culture shocks and language barriers for refugees. She now conducts a weekly class with a core group of 5 young Afghani women, with others joining periodically. Over time, Bree has found that the most helpful approach is to center each class discussion around a practical theme, such as grocery shopping, visiting a doctor's office, or going for a job interview, rather than teaching language and grammar per se. This winter, Bree also conducted a coat drive for Afghan refugees and collected more than 100 coats. Thank you, Bree. From the Lewis High School, Muhammad Kareem. Muhammad Kareem is a proud member of Powerful African American Males About Success, a skill-building literacy and mentoring program at Lewis High School to close the achievement gap for African American males. The program pairs upper-class high school students with a younger mentee for regular sessions devoted to social and academic skills. Over the years, the program has expanded to several neighboring schools in Fairfax County. One of the main goals of the program is to prepare African American males to make a successful transition from high school to institutions of higher education. In addition to striving to develop global citizens and lifelong learners with exemplary habits of the mind, the enterprise believes it provides the promise of chipping away at the nation's alarming racial wealth gap. Thank you. From Madison High School, Matthew Sullivan. After his grandfather suffered a debilitating stroke, Matthew started volunteering at the Stroke Comeback Center, a community-based nonprofit organization in Vienna. He organized a fun run and an online fundraiser which raised $10,000. Additionally, as part of his Eagle Scout project, he built a little library in the center. Matthew has taught the younger scouts in his troop how to recognize the early signs of a stroke and the importance of treating all the center attenders with respect and dignity. He pointed out that the inability to speak does not mean that the patient is unable to understand. Matthew's coaching and encouragement enabled the younger scouts to see past the disability and to recognize each client as a unique human being. Thank you, Matthew. Now I think there are 2 or 3 schools where the students were unable to attend, but I will read about them. And if you're actually here, please stand up. So from Marshall High School, No Place to Hate. No Place for Hate works to promote inclusivity at Marshall. The members create events to promote awareness and understanding of people with disabilities. Last year, No Place for Hate planned and created a video lesson presentation about supporting inclusion for special needs students, especially those with physical disabilities. The lesson focused on ensuring that these students get the best education possible. The video lesson was shown to every student, and teachers engaged them in conversation. No Place for Hate organized an event at the end of last year to give students with physical disabilities graduation cords. These long pieces of colorful rope are typically given for academic achievement or participation in a social club. School club. These students' cords were awarded to celebrate the courage and perseverance of students with special needs who completed their graduation. Thank you, No Place for Hate. And from McLean High School, Sahi Perez, we were not expecting it. Sahi Perez is a political activist and student leader at McLean High School. In her freshman year, she co-founded Fairfax County COVID Aid. The organization included more than 100 volunteers who provided groceries and delivery to those isolated by the pandemic, as well as online tutoring services. Over 2,200 people received help. She is also president of McLean's Model UN, is active in Virginia Young Democrats, lobbying for bills in the state legislature, and is on the leadership team for the Pride Liberation Project, a student-led organization advocating for LGBTQIA+ rights in Virginia. Thank you, Siggy. And from Mount Vernon High School, Amar D'Agostino, I don't think is coming. No. Okay. Amar is president of the Asian Pacific Islander American Club and helped it to expand to 14 area high schools, working against discrimination and hatred towards Asians by holding cultural events and providing Asian students a platform to discuss their lives. He organized a peaceful student walkout to protest the governor's moves to eliminate policies that protect LGBTQ students. As director of Mount Vernon News MVTV, he has been able to use the platform to fight LGBTQ discrimination and to draw attention to problems and resources concerning student mental health. As Mount Vernon's equity ambassador, he worked to get the school board to make the standards of learning more equitable and got the board to accept multiple religious holidays that were previously not recognized as leave days. Thank you, Amar. Now from Mountain View High School, Aaliyah Garnett. In response to the killings of Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and George Floyd, Aaliyah educated herself about policing and racial injustice and the history of racism and white supremacy. She participated in a Black Lives Matter march, but she wanted to do more and started to write an article for her school newspaper, the Mountain View Mirror. Several years earlier, her older brother had been killed in a violent crime. According to Aaliyah, the memory of her brother inspired her to finish the article, knowing that her brother would support her advocacy and be proud of her for making her thoughts known to her school community. In the article she writes, "Peace is freedom from violence and hatred. Peace is justice and equity." So it is. Thank you. From Quander Road School, Frank Marquez. Frank is involved in many school projects focused on helping his fellow students learn cooperation, entrepreneurship, teamwork, and the power of giving. Frank is an integral part of the Cobra Car Wash program. Students give up their Saturdays to raise money for student activities, such as field trips to local organizations which support workforce development. Frank also manages a school-run company which sells t-shirts and mugs. He is active in food service, managing the Quick Stop for student snacks and the Road Cafe, which sells meals to students and staff. According to a faculty member, Frank has a unique awareness of students' problems and gives them opportunities to solve them and to avoid misguided behavior by participating in group activities. In the classroom, Frank helps students avoid negative situations, solve potential problems, and learn from his modeling ways. Thank you, Frank. From Robinson Secondary School, Jada Lawton. Jada has organized trash cleanups, provided piano music and facilities catering to patients with dementia, and worked to extend awareness of anti-Semitism within the community. This year, she organized a walkout of over 250 students at Robinson Secondary School to support LGBTQ+ rights. She recently helped revive the Gender and Sexuality Alliance Club that was put on hold during COVID. The club has recently promoted a trans anthology project that supports the LGBTQ+ community by encouraging students to write stories of their struggles to help spread community awareness of the issues they face. In addition, she has used her skills as an artist to celebrate diversity at Robinson, to help destigmatize mental health disorders, and to show the value of bystander intervention when discrimination takes place in a public setting. Thank you, Jada. From South County High School, John Claude Schaefer. John Claude Schaefer created an elder outreach program that helps brighten the lives of elder residents in 8 retirement communities. They began with students writing letters and delivering them to 2 local retirement homes. As COVID restrictions eased, the letter writing campaign morphed into students making in-person visits to socialize with the residents, organize crafts and activities, and deliver musical and dance performances. The program now has multiple chapters involving more than 350 students from 7 high schools in Fairfax County. Says John, intergenerational activities among students and the elderly not only add to the quality of life of retirement home residents, but also provide opportunities for students to learn from the wisdom and experience of an earlier generation. Yes, thank you. From South Lakes High School, Rouge Katak, are you here? I think she didn't make it. Okay. As a South Lakes ambassador, Rouge Katak supports other students new to American schools, helping students with classes, clubs, and basic skills such as getting on the right bus. As a member of the Environmental Club, she has been active in cleanup days, recycling projects, and education programs. Last summer, Arush volunteered with Girls Learn International, an organization that empowers and educates young women to advocate for human rights, equality, and universal education. She has also worked on a team that sent emails and letters to members of Congress advocating for gun regulation and equity in education. Thank you, Arush. From Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, the Social Change Club. And we have Sophia Lee, Annika Holder, Jaya Gupta, Ananya Bandaru, Harika Akundi, and Drishika Bose. TJ's Social Change Club works to raise awareness of social, environmental, and other current affairs. The club meets monthly to discuss these issues, many of which are potentially divisive. From their discussions and activities, the club members realized that ethnic groups were not represented in the school curriculum. They therefore got to work on creating the curriculum for an ethnic studies elective. The proposed course syllabus will be piloted this summer and offered to TJ students by the history department next year. They hope to see this ethnic studies class go county-wide in the next few years. Awesome. From West Potomac High School, Sarah Salama. Sarah Salama is a student lead of West Potomac Student Equity Coalition, spreading awareness of gun violence and harassment, urging equitable teaching practices in classrooms, and assisting first-generation college applicants. The group brought attention to these issues by posting signs, distributing flyers, and holding meetings. They had a donation drive which provided college test preparation books to several dozen students. Sarah also worked to gather supplies to distribute to centers that serve Afghan refugees. She estimates that they assisted about 150 local refugees and their families. Sarah also collaborated with other clubs and teachers to bring the concerns of students with disabilities, immigrants, and members of the LGBTQ community to the West Potomac principal, who then resolved the situations. Thank you, Sarah. From West Springfield High School, Muqtadir Zahid. Muqtadir Zahid is president of West Springfield's chapter of UNICEF, which last year joined a school supplies drive to collect items for a free school built for underprivileged children in the Gambia. As a UNICEF Unite volunteer, Muqtadir meets with congressional officials to promote sponsorships and laws relevant to UNICEF's agenda. Sana and Samaya Zahid, sisters of Muqtadir, each received a Student Peace Award for founding and being active members of Spartans for War Victims, an organization dedicated to assisting civilians suffering from the effects of war. Muqtadir is now the president of the club, organizing countless humanitarian and advocacy projects and awareness workshops. This year, they collected over 500 garments to send to a Syrian refugee camp in Jordan. From Westfield High School, Cameron Casper. Cameron Casper organized a peaceful walkout of over 100 students at Westfield High School to protest Governor Youngkin's recent model policies update on treatment of transgender students in Virginia schools. Cameron said, on the day of the walkout, Westfield, along with nearly 100 other schools in the state, chose to stand against bigotry and discrimination in order to protect students' rights and identities. Since then, the vote for the model policies implementation has been pushed back, and his proposed guidelines have been heavily criticized for their blatant biases. Cameron also co-leads a group that lobbies for laws to help reduce gun violence. And finally, unless I've forgotten a school, so let me know if I have, Woodson High School, the UNICEF Club. And we have Sophia Hoa, Jacqueline Trong, and Rowan Diokino. The Woodson High School UNICEF Club supports children in need around the world. Monthly meetings of the club have raised student awareness through presentations and discussions on issues like child immunization, the Ukraine crisis, and gender equality. In the past year, the club has raised money for UNICEF's annual Trick or Treat campaign that helps underprivileged children around the world with health care, safe water and sanitation, education, and emergency relief. The club also recently organized a winter clothing drive for low-income families in the area and has sent letters and artwork for hope to Ukrainian refugee children and also to pediatric patients at Inova hospitals. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, so now, to top it off, we have a keynote address by Amelia Keegan. Amelia Keegan is the Associate General Secretary for Policy and Advocacy at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. She spent much of her career working in faith-based social justice advocacy, focusing especially on economic justice. She has worked at a variety of nonprofits in Washington, D.C. and in Chicago. She holds a BA from Smith College and a JD from the University of Washington School of Law. She lives with her family in Silver Spring, Maryland. Thank you, Amelia.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Wow, are you all inspired? I am inspired. First, I just want to thank you all for having me here today. Thank you to Margaret and everyone who spent what I know are many, many hours planning not just this event, but the entire awards program. And what a remarkable group of students. Amazing, amazing. Truly, to all of you awardees, congratulations. What an honor it is for me to be with you all today. So I work at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. We're a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization grounded in Quaker values working to advance social justice policy on Capitol Hill and with the administration. And we work on a host of peace and justice issues: climate change, gun violence prevention, economic justice, immigration policy, Middle East policy, militarism and human rights, international peace building, justice reform, voting rights, the list goes on and on. And we have a team of lobbyists who are based in Washington, but our real influence comes from supporting and empowering people around the country to build relationships and talk with their members of Congress on peace and justice issues. Some of them are in this room here today. That's really where the power is. From people around the country developing relationships with their representatives and senators and their staff and pushing on the issues that they care about. Showing that there is a big and broad constituency who shares these priorities. And we provide the resources and support to help people do this in an effective and strategic way. Now, it is easy to look at the world and all its brokenness, especially in Washington, right? All the problems in it and think, this is just too big. Can I really have an impact? And one might think that years spent in social justice advocacy would leave me disillusioned and jaded. And yet, I have tremendous hope, because I get to see the areas in which we make progress. And we do make progress, piece by piece. Often it is not covered by the news, but those glimmers of light shine through. And I get to witness and work with communities of people across the country pushing for peace and making that progress. Let me give you a recent example. Today, March 19th, is a notable one. Anyone know why? Some say the 20th, but 20 years ago today, the United States invaded Iraq. More than 20 years ago, Congress passed the Iraq War Authorization to defend the United States against the alleged threat of weapons of mass destruction from Saddam Hussein's regime. We saw 8 years of brutal conflict with more than 126,000 Iraqi civilians and 4,500 U.S. service members killed. The war officially ended over a decade ago, but the law authorizing that war is not only still in effect, it's still being used by presidents of both parties for things it was never intended to be used for. Today, the U.S. and Iraqi governments consider themselves to be strategic partners. Why have this law still on the books? Over the years, we've seen incremental but growing progress to repeal the 2002 Iraq Authorization for Use of Military Force, or the Iraq AUMF. FCNL's advocacy teams, networks of volunteers and citizen advocates across the country, some of whom are here today, have been pushing for the need for Congress to reassert its constitutional war powers and ensure that the people's branch, not the president, determines whether the United States goes to war, something the congressman referenced in his remarks. Those efforts of everyday individuals across the country committed to peace gained traction. First, we saw a growing list of bipartisan co-sponsors to repeal the Iraq War Authorization. Then, the U.S. House of Representatives passed repeal of the 2002 Iraq AUMF with an overwhelming bipartisan vote. Then, this past Thursday, the Senate paved the way for Senate passage, which we expect to see this coming week, again with an overwhelming bipartisan vote. How did we get here? Ordinary people around the country kept showing up again and again, going to their elected officials and talking again and again about the need to repeal the 2002 Iraq War Authorization. Undecideds in Congress became supporters, supporters became co-sponsors, co-sponsors became champions. So if it's all right, I'd like to get a little personal and kind of an anecdote that I think relates well to the effort we have as peace builders. One of my greatest passions in life is running long distances, marathons and ultramarathons. An ultramarathon is anything that's longer than a marathon. And my favorite distance is the 100-mile race. When I walk up to that start line, no matter how many times I do it, I question its feasibility. The very concept of running 100 miles is still hard for me to comprehend. I've done it before, I know what it feels like, but I still can't wrap my head around it. I will confess that sometimes when I read the news or look at my social media feed and I see the violence that surrounds us, what's happening in the Ukraine and the Middle East, what's happening in our own streets with an unrelenting string of mass shootings and police killing black and brown folks. I look at the dysfunction in Congress and I think about the world we are pushing at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. One free of war and the threat of war. A society with equity and justice for all. A community where every person's potential may be fulfilled. And an earth restored. When I try to envision that world, I feel the same way. Just like I have trouble imagining the finish line 100 miles and 30 hours away, that image of the world we seek can be hard to picture. Any of you ever feel that way? It is so big and so different from the reality I know and the world in which we live today. Listen, I don't know if we'll achieve world peace in my lifetime, and I don't know if we'll achieve it in yours. But I do know that we can be doing a heck of a lot better than we are doing today. And when I'm in the middle of a long race and in a low spot, because there are going to be low spots in a 100-mile race, I can't focus on that 100-mile finish line. I focus on getting to the next tree, or the next aid and water station 5 miles away. And then the next tree, and the next aid station, and gradually, bit by bit, I get to that finish line. World peace might be hard to imagine right now. Real justice might be hard to envision right now, but I can see legislation that takes seriously the threat of climate change and that pays particular attention to frontline communities. I can see investments in international peace-building efforts that can effectively prevent conflict in the first place. I see Congress finally repealing the 2002 Iraq War Authorization after 20 years of advocacy. And that's what we do at FCNL. We hold on to and pursue that prophetic vision while advancing the practical policies that will push us farther along that path of the world we seek. But it's not easy. 20 years takes a lot of patience. In those hard and dark moments, what's going to keep you going? You know the number one reason why people don't finish a 100-mile race? It's not their fitness level. It's not that their legs aren't strong enough or that their lungs can't take in enough oxygen. And even though it's a huge piece of ultramarathons, it's not even because of a lack of mental toughness. The number one reason why people don't finish a 100-mile race It's because they mess up on their nutrition. They don't take in enough calories. And without that nutrition, your body cannot sustain you through 100 miles. What is your nutrition strategy for this work? It is community that will nourish and sustain us through the ultramarathon of social justice advocacy. A few years ago, I flew down to Arizona to run a race in the desert. Now, I grew up knowing Chicago winters, and I studied law in the rains of the Pacific Northwest, so the desert was new. I expected to see only sand, heat, and sun, but in this place my inexperienced mind assumed was simply sand and death. I saw life and beauty all around. Green shrubbery flourishing, cacti prominently asserting their survival, the most radiant sunrises to ever glorify my eyes. And I began to see why in Scripture God repeatedly uses the desert as a place of transformation. It is through the exodus from Egypt, bringing the Israelites through the desert, that God performs one of his greatest miracles in the Old Testament. We see David flee to the desert twice to preserve his life, escaping King Saul and his son Absalom, and writing some of Scripture's most beautiful psalms. Because sometimes we have to trudge through pathways of death and decay to find life. Sometimes those desert moments are what bring transformation, bring renewed life. But it's not easy. In the desert, there are no trees, no shade. You are exposed, vulnerable. But vulnerability can be what fosters connection. And isn't it in times like these, especially coming out of a pandemic, that we feel a stronger longing for connection? A heightened desire for community? A need to come together, work together, live together, act up together, create that vision of the world we know is possible. Desert moments can force us to collective action, and collective action drives historic change. So I ask you now, do you have your nutrition strategy? I'll tell you my nutrition strategy. It is the interfaith community in which I work and the Sunday morning church community in which I worship. It is my husband and my toddler and my 8-month-old. It is the entire staff at the Friends Committee on National Legislation. It is being with all of you here today and the inspirational leaders who are promoting awareness and understanding of people with disabilities, organizing walkouts and protesting discriminatory treatment of LGBTQ plus communities, normalizing mental health conversations, organizing anti-child trafficking activities, raising thousands of dollars for critical causes. Every single Student Peace Award winner here today, it is all the families and friends and teachers and everyone who has supported them all along the way. It may feel like we are in the desert right now, but let this be a transformation moment. It is in this moment that we are called to transform the fear and suspicion, the hurt and despair, the racism and natism into a new thing, coming together in community to build a better society, a better country, a better future for our world. Let us be what John Lewis called the headlights of righteousness, beaming forth the path of love and justice, leading the history classes of tomorrow to look back at this moment, seeing the trail of student activists and leaders illuminating a pathway to justice as a country transformed to be unabashedly, prophetically, more directed towards peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Amelia. That was very inspiring, and you remind me a little bit of a lecture I was at by someone who was talking about climate change, and someone asked him, but with all these bad things, where do you find hope? And he said, hope is not an action plan. So let's go get that action plan, and let's have one round of applause for the students again.